Hello viewers and learners of the course MEVE 001, that is Environmental Impact Assessment for Environmental Health. I introduce myself as Dr. Sushmita Bhaskar, working in the discipline of Environmental Studies at the School of Interdisciplinary and Transdisciplinary Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University, New Delhi. Today we will discuss on the methodologies and testing of the EIA. So before proceeding to the methodologies, let us have a brief introduction to the definitions of EIA and a little bit of the origins and how the laws have come in place and how our country also has proceeded with the EIA in place. So after reading this module, you should be able to explain and define the environmental impact assessment and its origin and discuss some methodologies in EIA. Impact assessment, environmental impact assessment, can be described as a study of the effects of a proposed activity, plan or program on the Earth's environment. EIA can be integrated by the environmental concerns in the project planning process, which makes the essential step for giving sensitivity to the social and economic as well as environmental impacts of certain projects. In this way, it will enable the project managers for compensating on challenges in the project planning processes. Now, what EIA focuses is on the core values, problems, conflicts or the natural resource and the factors which force the effect on the variability of a project. Forecasting the possible challenges which come in the first step. Then the second step will follow the evaluation measurement ways which can help to reduce the problem and define the various ways to improve the project's appropriateness for its corresponding environment. For example, we are starting some thermal power plant, or we are starting some other kind of construction of a dam in an area. So if we come up with the map, the geographical distribution of the area, how many people are actually staying in that area, then and what are the impacts that can be caused due to that project activity, due to the activity of that project, the health of the people, will that be impacted? Are there any water sources in that area? Is there any spring, any lake or any river that is flowing nearby? Do you think that can get impacted by this developmental activity? Again, do you find any habitation over there? Do you find any wildlife, any forested area over there? So are those animals and the biodiversity going to be affected due to this developmental activity? So all this, the environmental impact assessment will take into account all these steps, and then they will give you the steps how we can reduce the problems and define the ways how we can improve the project's appropriateness, whether it is fit, whether it is possible that this project can be implemented or not, or how we can modify and implement the same. So in the past years, EIA has been recognized as the most valuable interdisciplinary and objective decision making tool with respect to alternate routes for development, process technologies and also project sites. It is taken as an ideal anticipatory mechanism, allowing measures that ensure environmental compatibility in our quest for socio-economic development. Now, there are certain definitions that are given for the EIA. This is basic to our understanding. So, an EIA is an analytical process that systematically examines the possible environmental consequences of the implementation of projects, programs and policies. It can also be defined as an interdisciplinary analysis of the natural, human health and socio-cultural effects which are expected to result from public and private sector actions such as development projects. An environmental impact assessment is an assessment of the possible positive or negative impact that a proposed project may have on the environment together, consisting of the environmental, social and economic aspects. So all these have been put forth and been reported by various researchers and scientists, and that has also, the source has also been given for your perusal. Again, environmental assessment is a procedure that ensures that the environmental implications of decisions are taken into account before the decisions are made. Environmental assessment can be undertaken for individual projects such as a dam, a motorway, airport or factory on the basis of directive known as Environmental Impact Assessment EIA directive. Now, the International Association for Impact Assessment, it defines EIA as a process of identifying, predicting, evaluating and mitigating the biophysical, social and other relevant effects of developmental proposals prior to major decisions being taken and the commitments that are being made. So they require the decision makers to account for environmental values in their decisions and to justify those decisions in light of the detailed environmental studies and public comments on the potential environmental impacts of the proposals that are obtained. The EIA studies help to avoid and minimize, mitigate any significant negative impact that has incurred to the public by systematically updating the decision makers and informing the affected public through proposed actions and suggested alternatives. The origin, history and development of the EIA. Now, following the decades following the World War II, that were a period of extraordinary economic development and environmental change. The rapid development of jobs, housing, transportation and energy systems that were accompanied by the widespread negative environmental changes, including the air, water pollution, and there were also destruction of the ecosystems, the alteration of the farmlands, and all this there were in fact a major redevelopment of the historic urban centers also. The environmental movement of 1916s and especially Rachel Carson who wrote the book Silent Spring, this played a major role in the ratification of government's fundamental new environmental laws. And then each law addressed a specific environmental problem, for example wetland or pertaining to clean air and so on. It started with the United States. So for example, the US Clean Air Act and the Clean Water Act, they were formulated to regulate the pollution by specifying allowable concentration limit for the specific toxicants in the air, water and on the land. Some other laws focused on specific issues, for example on endangered species, on historic preservation of habitats, then also on the preservation of the wetlands. All these regulatory approaches were highly effective. So the EIA was first used in the 1960s as part of a rational decision making process, and it involved a technical evaluation that would lead to objective decision making. Finally, EIA was accepted as a legislation in the National Environmental Policy Act 1969 of the United States of America. This was the first legislation to provide a framework for allowing environmental concerns to be addressed. So the EIA process was used as a means to integrate the generation and dissemination of environmental information and foster collaboration among the diverse set of the public and private actors and stakeholders which characterize major environmentally controversial decisions. Now this is being used globally, and EIA is used as a decision aiding tool rather than a decision making tool, and after being passed as a law by the United States, many international organizations and the countries have passed their own environmental impact assessment laws, and it is also being revised from time to time. Now some environmental issues that are occurring globally. If you take the continent Africa, this has the world's poorest and most resource dependent population. There are severe environmental problems which include desertification and soil degradation. There is declining food security, there is increasing water scarcity and stress in the northeast and the southern African regions. Asia and the Pacific region, there is rapid economic growth, population growth, urbanization and industrialization. All this has put pressure on the land and the water resources. There is widespread environmental degradation and high pollution levels. Now in the Eastern Europe and Central Asia, here industrial pollution, soil pollution, particulate matter pollution, especially pollution from sulfur oxides, lead, the toxic heavy metals and toxic chemicals and so on are one of the lead environmental issues that is occurring here. Latin American and the Caribbean regions, there is poor and poverty occurring here. It is highly overcrowded. There are pollution problems. They lack in the basic infrastructure. There is a destruction in the tropical rainforest, especially in the Amazon basin, and there is loss of biodiversity. In the Middle East countries, here there is desertification of the land and degradation of the soil due to saline, alkaline and the nutrient deposition that is occurring. The demand for the water resources is high. There is uncontrolled urbanization, air and the water pollution. So many of these countries are presently taking active part in the environmental impact assessment and mitigation processes. Then integrated impact assessment, they are linking the biophysical and the socio-economic effects, and this is identified as an important priority. EIA is recognized as one of the best available mechanism for implementing an integrated approach. In practice, achieving all this will require greater focus to be given to the identification of social, health and other impacts in the EIA process. Now having had an idea about the EIA and certain origins for the EIA, now let us go on to the methods for the impact assessment process. Advances in information technology, this has made available several tools for the assessment process. For example, there are map overlay methods. This was originally pioneered by McHardt in 71. This has now been evolved into the Geographic Information System, what we refer to as the GIS. Then there are expert systems, a branch of artificial intelligence that has also been developed to help in screening, scoping, developing terms of reference, the TOR, and conducting the preliminary assessment. So these systems are using comprehensive checklist, matrices and networks in combination with other impact rules developed by the EIA experts. Addressing the sustainable development goals, that has made the analysis of the cost and benefits, which is very important in economic criteria, which benefits, and it is an important integral part of the EIA process. More specialized approaches and methods are evolved to meet the changing needs of the EIA, and that include the predictive methods, environmental risk assessment, economic analysis, and also the expert systems. So there are simplest techniques and methods for the EIA, and that gives information to help choose the most appropriate method for a given situation. Ad hoc method, for example, they are useful when time constraints are there and lack of information, then that required that the EIA must exclusively rely only on the expert opinion who are experienced in their field. Then there are checklists and matrices. They are good tools for organizing and for presenting the information. Sectoral guidelines, they are becoming widely accepted as an appropriate technique for conducting the initial environmental analysis. Then there is sequential approach, systematic sequential approach that provides a proven approach to thinking through the causal change, activity changes, impacts, and then to mitigate the impact. Networks are a formalized way of representing these causal chains. Simulation modeling workshops, they are techniques for taking network representation of impacts and building the simple conceptual models. In developing the simulation models, the conceptual models are translated into mathematical and computer language, and through the use of dynamic simulation, the impacts over time can also be projected. Spatial analysis methods that can allow for the presentation of the spatial pattern of environmental impacts through the map overlays. For example, geographical information system, it is used for analyzing and displaying the spatial impacts. Rapid assessment techniques that have been designed to cope with the need for quick assessment to deal with rapid changes in many parts of the developing world. Now comes the role of expert judgment. Most of the methods and the techniques for identifying, measuring and assessing the impacts, they rely on expert judgment. There are many checklists, matrices and models that are used in the EIA, and they represent years of expertise by the several experts. So the experts will be involved in all aspects of the assessment. They can help identify the potential impacts, plan the data collection, monitoring the program, provide their judgment on the level of the significance of the specific impacts, and they can also suggest ways of reducing and preventing the impacts. So how do we choose the method which is most appropriate for that project or that developmental activity? EIA methods can range from simple to complex. It can require different kinds of data, different data formats, and varying levels of expertise and technological sophistication for their interpretation. The analysis they produce have differing levels of precision and certainty. So all these factors should be considered when selecting a method. The EIA practitioner all the time, he is faced with a vast quantity of raw and usually unorganized information. So that is a raw material, we can say, and that must be collected and analyzed in the preparation of an EIA report. The best methods can organize a large mass of heterogeneous data. It will allow the summarization of the data, aggregate the data into smaller sets with least loss of information, and it will finally display the raw data and the derived information in a direct and in a relevant way. Checklist. Now I am giving you only some examples because everything cannot be covered here. Checklists are the methods that are primarily for the organizing the information for ensuring that no potential impact is overlooked. Sophisticated checklist that can include the scaling checklist in which the listed impacts are ranked in the order of magnitude and also the severity. Weighting scaling checklists in which the numerous environmental parameters are weighted. They can use the expert judgment, and then an index is calculated to serve as a measure for comparing the project alternatives. In general, there are 4 types of the checklist. They include simple checklist. Here a list of environmental parameters with no guidelines on how they are to be measured and interpreted can be given. Descriptive checklist includes an identification of environmental parameters and guidelines on how to measure the data on the particular parameter. Scaling checklist. This is similar to a descriptive checklist but with additional information on subjective scaling of the parameters. Scaling weighting checklist. This is similar to a scaling one, but there is additional information for the subjective evaluation of each parameter with respect to all the other parameters. So, there may be advantages or there may be several reasons for using the checklist. They are used for summarizing the information, making it in an accessible form to the specialist from other fields also, because it is easy to understand when you are organizing and representing the same, and to the decision makers also it is easy for them to understand from this. They may have limited amount of the technical knowledge also. So, it is easy for them to use the checklist and understand from this checklist. Scaling checklist will provide a preliminary level of the analysis. Weighting is a mechanism for incorporating the information about the ecosystem functions. Now, giving some examples of the geographical information system and remote sensing. So, these two also they play a vital role in creating computerized spatial data set and for setting up the spatial relationships. EIA can be performed using GIS and remote sensing programming. For example, projects such as the dam development, regarding catchment territory, evaluating the advantage to the general public, all this can be undertaken using GIS and remote sensing. The significant application of GIS is the construction of real world models based on digital data. Modeling can analyze the trends, it can identify factors that are causing them, reveal the alternative path to solving the given problem, indicate implications or consequences of certain decision. For example, a GIS can show how a natural resource will be affected due to a certain decision. Based on satellite data, the areas that suffer most of the deforestation, for example, that can be identified. It can be analyzed based on the overlying data on the soil type, the species required, the likely growth and the yield, and the impact of regulatory measures that are applicable to the area. This has been given by the Asian Development Bank in 1991. GIS again, it can be used to assess the risk of drought, for example in choosing rain-fed crops, in fisheries based on the past trends of the population dynamic in a given area, long-term consequences of restocking program on the environment, that can be given. It is also used in determining the optical route for communication, irrigation, road maintenance and so on. So, GIS is a very important tool in the EIA. It is a powerful management and tool for the resource managements and the managers and the planners in this field. Its applications are limited by the quality, quantity and the coverage of the data that are fed into the system, because what we give into the system, only that we will get the output from the same. Some of the standard GIS applications are integrating maps made at different scales, overlaying the different types of maps which show different attributes, identifying the required areas within a given distance from roads or the rivers. For instance, by overlaying maps of vegetation and soils, a new map on the land suitability can be generated and the impact of the proposed projects can also be studied. Rapid assessment of the pollution sources. Now, in the early 1980s, the World Health Organization developed a manual for the rapid assessment of the land, air and the water pollution. This was very useful in the developing countries in the design of environmental control strategies and by using a modest source of the financial and human resources. The rapid procedure allows for the quick estimation of the pollutants that are released to the environment. Finally, how can we evaluate the significance of an ecological impact? Ecological impact is a term that is given to the effect of a habitat or species due to direct or indirect changes in the environment brought about due to developmental activities or a project. In addition, the magnitude, scale and the severity of that project on that habitat and the species affected can also be known. Given in the next few slides, I am giving you a few tables for understanding and we can see the significance of the ecological impact of that site, the habitat or a species. Now, in this table, you can see that the habitat quality of a project can be impacted, okay, and the quality is important. Species. So, ecologically, if there are very important species, then that habitat ecologically it will be important. So, the criteria for evaluating is to be taken into account. The size, suppose that habitat size is greater, then the impact also will be more and that numbers of the organisms to be impacted also will be more. The duration, is it a long term impact or a short term impact? Reversibility, can that project give a permanent impact or it can be a reversible or it is a temporary impact? The magnitude, the greater the magnitude of that, then the environmental impact also will be more. Then we can have, for example, the naturalness, the size, the diversity of the species that are present in a particular area, rarity of that species, if something is endangered, if the species, and if that project is going to hamper that, impact it, then that is of course has to be documented and it is to be noted, it is important. Then whether the habitats can be recreated naturally or artificially, or are they valued higher, I mean those aspects need to be taken. Fragmentation, the more fragmented the habitat has a lower value. Then the ecological linkage, then the potential value, the nursery breeding ground, the age, ancient and very natural and semi-natural habitats, these are normally highly valued. So these have to be taken into account. Then protection status, species that are listed under the red data book or under local and international laws and conservation for the wildlife, this has to be given special attention. Distribution, species with restricted distribution are rated higher. Rarity, rare species have more value. So reference should be made to the red data books. So dear learners and viewers of this course and this module, we have understood some methodologies of the EIA and the testing that can be done, and we have given some important methodologies, for example how the checklists are important, how the geographical information systems and remote sensings can be applied for the environmental impact assessment procedures. Then we have also given you a list of the different methodologies that can be employed and the habitat value and how rapid assessment also can be taken. We have given you that the importance of a value, importance of a site, importance, the rarity of a species, the protection status, then the distribution of the species, also the also depending upon the type or the magnitude of the impact that will have on the number of species that are present there, then whether it is endangered, then and certain other factors which were given in the tables. So all this is very important to be understood, and these have to be taken into account when assessing the environmental impact assessment of any developmental project that is being proposed. It could be for a dam or for any power project and so on. So these experienced project managers and the learners and also the people who are directly involved in managing this and who are going to give the methodologies and the testing procedures for the same, they will give you the right amount of the attention that is required and how we can go about by the methodologies and testing for the EIA. Thank you for your patient listening, and I hope you have had a good understanding of this module. Thank you.